Hi, welcome back. Next up, we are talking about sales versus customer success. Okay, so we're going to run through what we're going to cover now. So, the first question is, are they different? It's a very good question. You might be surprised by the answer. Then we're going to look at the shared foundations between sales and customer success style roles. Next up, we're going to tackle understanding customers' needs, metrics that matter the most, and where the roles diverge is where we're going to finish. As a goal here, in the last module, you walked away having a bit of a foundation of what customer success is. What does a CSM, a customer success manager, actually do? In this case, we're going to be looking at the parallels that are there between a sales role and a customer success role, and both of them as functions. Warning, okay, this is the most important video in the entire course. Watch the whole video, don't skip, don't fast forward. You never know when you're going to catch one little thing, which is the exact thing that you need, which is why you have to consume all of it. Pro tip, if you can understand me, please feel free to watch it in 2x speed. I don't typically watch it in 2x speed. I'm either at 1 speed or 1.7. I find 2 is pretty crazy, but I know that there are those of you who might do it. So, are they different? This is the question we're all wondering, and my answer is no. So within a go-to-market organization, in a tech company, customer success inevitably falls under the CRO, Chief Revenue Officer, and they are directly responsible for revenue a lot of the time. There are caveats. Customer success can be used as mortar in between the bricks of a building, of a go-to-market organization. They're filling in the gaps. They may not be responsible for new renewals and upsells. And then often you'll find that they're measured on things like tickets, and it's actually more of a support position. So reading through a job description and not getting caught in a job title is a really powerful move for you to understand what you're actually getting in for. That's all I had for that one. Shared foundation. So let's check out what is similar. In terms of activities, in sales, you're going to be sending some emails, running meetings. You're going to collaborate internally all the time, maybe bring in a solution consultant. You're going to bring in other buying parties within the customer as well. Shape perceptions, tell stories, right? And make phone calls. I left that out. Fundamentally, you're doing the same thing in customer success. The actual day-to-day things that you might be typing into your keyboard are actually quite similar. Relationships matter. So this one's really interesting. I started in B2C and moved to B2B. And business fundamentally is made up of people aligned towards a common purpose, right? So if you have B2C, business to consumer or customer experience, then B2B sales is more complex because there are different people involved with different agendas, and they might have different budgets, and it gets more complex, right? And you can't have that simplicity and really lean into an emotional purchase. You need to lean into a very rational purchase and the emotions that are underpinning. But at the core, you're dealing with people, and that's extremely common between the two. Communication, this is imperative. We speak with people all day, every day. Value is delivered in the form of communication. And I say that with a caveat that will come up later. But what we're looking at here is I could say apple to you. And if you were raised believing a pear is an apple, then in your head, you're going to have a picture of a pear. And if you say, yeah, apple, I've walked away thinking about an apple. You've walked away thinking about what I call a pear. If you don't have clear communication and defined terms, then it can come up to bite you in the butt when it comes time to actually sign something, and there might be numbers attached, and they're very different than what it is that you thought you spoke about. Both careers have a high earning potential. Obviously, the closer to revenue you are, the higher the earning potential is. But on the flip side, customer success can provide a lot more stability in terms of your base at a lower on-target earnings amount. And so that's your choice, right? Both are outcomes focused. So sales can be deeply rewarding for the right person. And mercenaries love to win. Missionaries love to help. And I really like this story. I'm going to pause here. So mercenaries versus missionaries. I think it's a really cool sort of frame to think about. There are two kinds of sellers. There are those that like to hunt and get a deal, and they like to win, right? So it's more self-centered, it's very financially driven. And the other one is getting into sales from a point of helping someone. And often it's a problem that maybe you've solved before in your own life or that you feel particularly close to. And they can be referred to as a missionary. And missionaries love to help. And I think it's a really interesting way to think about it, because if you're a mercenary and you just love to go and sell and to win and to compete, then you're probably going to really love pre-sales. Selling, getting new logos in, getting new customers, bringing in revenue, winning on the leaderboard. That's awesome. For missionaries, being able to actually deliver on the promises that are made when something is being sold, and to actually see that solution owner get value. And maybe you get really rewarded from seeing someone master a new skill, and then knowing that that skill is going to build into being able to deliver on the promises that were made. That's really, really rewarding too. So understanding what type of seller you are and what drives you, I think is really valuable here to see if you fit into this like post-sales customer success box or not. Next up, we're going to have a quick chat about understanding our customers' needs. Okay, so this is a similarity. If we look at pain, products and services exist to solve for problems, and problems cause pain. It's the same thing. In sales, you're making a promise, and in customer success, you're keeping the promise. Fundamentally, you're still solving the problem. Personas. So here, for B2B sales professionals, you are nearly definitely exposed to multiple buying personas. If you're selling to really small businesses, maybe there's a sole operator, maybe they have like 10 staff members, then you're probably looking at a singular decision maker. But it gets more complex the larger a company becomes. With B2C, I've found it's a fillable gap as long as you can display the business acumen that is needed during the interview process to build value and make sure that they don't see this as an objection. But it's something that's important to understand. You may be dealing with different departments who have different goals, and they may be competing with each other. A consultative approach, and the best approach, is to truly understand the problem and persona to make recommendations. And this is across both sales and customer success. It's understanding what typically things look like, but also why they look this way for this particular person in a particular time at this company, and what they're trying to get out of it personally, and understanding them, their problem. And then when you make a recommendation, you are solving for a problem. And I really love, there's a particular framework called SPICED, SPICED, and I think about it pretty frequently. I really like sort of it as a checklist to think through when you're being consultative, which is, if you're going to make a recommendation, do you have each of these ticked off? The situation, the pain or the problem, the impact that they want. The CE is the critical event, so what thing is going to happen in the future if they don't solve this problem. And then the D is the decision criteria that are important to them. When you have all those things sort of ticked off and you understand them, then when you make a recommendation, it carries far more weight. With timing, it's actually quite different. So in customer success, you might be aware that something is not ready to close yet. And in my personal day-to-day, I can see when a solution owner doesn't necessarily, or a solution team doesn't necessarily have the skill set to be able to deliver on a more complicated part of our product suite. And so I might delay or sort of guide them towards spinning up a proof of concept that takes a little longer, because I'm aware that if they went for the full Shazam and had the more complicated thing, that they don't have the technical requirements yet to be able to get the value that they want to get, and then it would fall flat. And because I understand them and where they are in their organization, I can make that recommendation, and then I can also pitch professional services to give them the additional technical requirements. In sales, you're often pushed just to get it done as early as physically possible. As it scales up into a larger organization, maybe there are budgetary requirements and constraints, but as a whole, it's a little bit less pressure. Okay, so we're gonna have a look at metrics. All right, this is pretty important. So if we look at metrics as outcomes and inputs, we can look at the outcomes for sales along the top: number of new deals, revenue generated, average contract value, ACV, sales cycle time, win rates. These are different measurable outcomes that you may be looked at with, but as a fundamental, is it, are you hitting your quota or not, right? In CS, you're keeping your customers successful, happy, and growing. And so your outcomes are things like renewals, your retention, your net retained revenue and gross retained revenue, NRR being your book plus expansions, GRR being your book, say, at the start of the year compared to the end of the year as a percentage. And then you might be looking at things like CSAT, customer satisfaction. There are other metrics like NPS, which is a net promoter score, that are contentious. And this is where customer success is interesting. Sometimes, as a less mature function within an organization compared to sales, people don't really know what you're being measured on. You may have to create your own metrics, right? You might need to hold yourself accountable to metrics that you know are not actually driving meaningful change. And that's a gray area. Whether it's better or worse, it's up to you. In terms of inputs, we're looking at activities in sales, activities like calls, emails, meetings. You might be filling in a methodology like BANT, budget authority, need, timing. In CS, it might be less clearly defined as the leading indicators, the inputs that will drive success. But often you'll be looking at things like the number of success plans completed, the number of business reviews completed, your meetings per week, your meeting frequency. So how frequently do you meet with this specific customer? Maybe your number of training sessions completed. You might need to have an executive presence. And so it might be number of business reviews completed with executive presence. It might be value validated with executive stakeholder. So in the business review, did you directly ask the executive sponsor, are you getting value? You could be measured on that. And that could be a strong leading indicator. If they were to say yes, they're probably more likely to renew. And if they say no, you probably have a problem that you need to go solve, right? It really depends. It's very flexible, but you absolutely are measured both on what you produce and what you put in. Now we're going to have a look at where the roles diverge, where they're a little bit different. So promises, sales makes them, customer success keeps them. That's the easy way to think about it. And a lot of the time, sales might make a promise around how quickly an implementation can be done. And then it can't really actually be done that quickly, but they made that promise and didn't set expectations clearly. So in customer success, you do have sometimes some frustration if there are not clear expectations internally and internal alignment. Value realization. And this one is, does each member of the committee see, understand, and validate that value has been provided or delivered? In sales, it's, does each member of the committee see, understand, and validate that value could be provided, but it hasn't been provided yet? And that difference sounds small, but it is huge. Next is volume. In sales, at least as a BDR, you can always make more dials into your addressable market. It's not unlimited, but there are always more calls that you can make. In CS, you have a finite book. Your market is your book of business and any of the other business units that exist within it. And making interactions matters more. The other way that I could read that is, it makes your interactions matter more. Each of your interactions, you want to show up. There's a lot of preparation that you need to put in to be able to show up really well. And engagement. In sales, it's expected if you're, say, making a cold call, you just probably won't get through to someone. The connect rate is pretty low. But the closer you get to a close and to someone making a purchasing decision, the higher the risk factor is when someone isn't engaging. In customer success, engagement can be a really big deal. And if someone's not responding, that can act as a far greater risk indicator. And the last piece is training. And in sales, you're doing demos to show what's possible. In customer success, you're thinking about equipping a solution owner, a team, or an end user with a skill in order for them to do the work they need to do to achieve their desired outcome. Okay, now that we've covered off on all of that, in summary, what we're looking at here is you should now have a clearer understanding of what customer success actually is. With that, I missed the word is, and how it relates to a sales role. The second part here, and this is what I was really hoping to deliver with this module, was is it for you? Does the type of work sound enjoyable? Do you prefer nurturing relationships versus continually filling pipeline and hunting for new? There's no right or wrong answer, but if you put yourself down to it, are you in it for yourself or are you in it to help others and know that you'll get compensated fairly as a return? The third part here is mindset. And up next, we're going to talk about mindset. And we're going to be looking at moving from closing deals to actually driving outcomes. I can't wait to see you there. Take a few seconds to ponder on number 1 and number 2.